The champagne flute hits the marble floor at exactly 7:43 p.m. Nobody hears it shatter. That is the first impossible thing about this moment. 500 people packed into the grand ballroom of the St. Regis, New York. Crystal chandeliers throwing diamonds of light across Versace gowns and Tom Ford tuxedos. A string quartet soaring through Pachelbel with the focused intensity of people being paid very well. And not one single person hears the glass hit the floor, because at the exact moment it falls, Victor Zaire Reyes steps up to the altar and the entire room holds its breath like it has been told to. Elian watches the champagne spread across the ivory marble in a slow golden fan. He does not pick up the pieces. He stands in the alcove beside the third column, half hidden behind an arrangement of ivory roses the height of a small child. And he watches the man he loves prepare to marry someone else. His white blazer is perfectly pressed. His dark hair is neat. His blue eyes are dry. From the outside, he looks like a guest who has wandered slightly off course, someone who took a wrong turn looking for the restroom and ended up somewhere they were never meant to be. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. That is, in fact, exactly what happened to Elian Anderson. He took a wrong turn. He just took it 18 months ago, and the wrong turn had a name, and the name was Victor. And now here he is, standing in broken glass with his hand pressed flat against his abdomen, hiding a secret so large it has begun to reshape his body, watching the ceremony begin. The officiant raises his voice above the string quartet. The bride takes her first step. And Elian Anderson does the one thing a man in his position absolutely should not do. He stays. He stays because leaving means accepting it. Leaving means walking out of those tall bronze doors, past the valets in their white gloves and the town cars idling on 55th Street, into a New York night that will ask him nothing and offer him nothing, and simply continue being New York, enormous and indifferent, while he figures out how to exist in a world where Victor Zaire Reyes belongs to someone else. Leaving means it is real. So he stays. He stands in his corner with champagne soaking into the sole of his left shoe, and he watches. And he tells himself he is only here to understand, to see it with his own eyes, so that some part of his brain that has refused to accept the press release, I refuse to accept the invitation he never received, refused to accept the last 6 weeks of silence, so that part finally, irrevocably, closes. He is lying to himself. He is here because Victor asked him to be. Not in words. Victor never uses words when proximity will accomplish the same thing. 3 days ago, Victor sent a car to Elian's apartment building on West 72nd Street. No message, no explanation. Just a black Tesla with a driver named Darius who handed Elian an envelope containing a single index card with a seat number written on it in Victor's handwriting. Row 3. Center. Row 3, center, in the third largest ballroom of the St. Regis, New York. Elian had stood on his sidewalk holding the index card for 4 minutes. Then he got in the car. He did not take his assigned seat. He found the alcove instead. Because whatever Victor intended by that card, Elian is not ready to be seen. Not yet. Not in a room full of people who will look at the omega in the third row and start doing math. He is just barely holding the geometry of this situation together, and an audience will collapse it entirely. The vows begin. The bride's name is Camille. She has cheekbones that belong in a museum and a gown that cost more than most people's apartments and a composure so complete it reads as supernatural. She stands at the altar with her hands folded in front of her, and she says her part of the ceremony in a voice that is clear and even and completely unafraid. Elian watches Victor's face while Camille speaks. Victor is looking at the officiant. His jaw is set, his hands are clasped behind his back, and he is wearing a black Tom Ford tuxedo, and he is standing the way he always stands, like something that was built, not born. Like something engineered for exactly this amount of pressure and not 1 pound more. He does not look happy. He does not look unhappy. He looks like a man executing a decision. That distinction between choosing something and executing it is the thing that keeps Elian standing in the alcove instead of walking out. Because he knows Victor Reyes. He has spent 18 months learning the difference between the face Victor shows the world and the face he shows at 2 a.m. in a cashmere sweater on the floor of his penthouse. And the face at the altar right now is not the 2 a.m. face. It is the boardroom face, the press conference face, and the face of a man performing a role he has been cast in against his will and is too disciplined to break character. Or that is what Elian tells himself. He is aware, with the specific clarity that comes from standing alone in champagne-wet shoes, that he might simply be wrong. The string quartet shifts into something slower. Victor turns to take Camille's hands, and in the turning, in that single pivot, his eyes sweep the room the way powerful men's eyes always sweep rooms, cataloguing, assessing, noting. And they stop. They find the alcove. They find Elian. For exactly 2 seconds, Victor Zaire Reyes looks at Elian Anderson across 500 people and a sea of ivory roses and all the distance that the last 6 weeks have built between them, and his face does the thing it should not do in this room, in this moment. In front of these witnesses. It breaks, fractionally, for 2 seconds. Then it reassembles. He turns back to Camille. Elian's hand presses harder against his abdomen. He needs to leave. He understands this with absolute certainty now. Staying past this moment is not understanding. It is punishment, and he does not deserve punishment, and the child inside him certainly does not deserve whatever consequence this night is building toward. He takes 1 step back toward the far corridor. The ballroom's rear doors slam open, not the gentle ushered opening of latecomers. The kind of opening that takes both doors off their hinges and sends them swinging wide against the walls with a crack that cuts through the quartet and the vows and 500 conversations happening in stolen whispers. Dante Vasiliev walks in like he owns the building. He is flanked by 2 men whose suits are expensive enough to pass and whose eyes are scanning the room with the practiced assessment of people paid to calculate threats. Dante himself is 6 feet of controlled fury in charcoal grey, his dark hair pushed back from a face that has never once in its life looked sorry for anything. He does not look at Victor. He does not look at Camille. His eyes move directly, immediately, with the precision of a man who already knows the answer, to the alcove beside the 3rd column. He finds Elian. He smiles, and in that smile is something that freezes Elian's blood cold, because it is not the smile of a man who has arrived to cause trouble. It is the smile of a man who has arrived to finish something he started a long time ago, and something that was already in motion before Elian ever walked into that charity gala, before he ever stood beside Victor at a bar, before any of this began. The smile of a man who has been waiting. "Stay right there," the smile says. "We're just getting started." The quartet stops playing, every head in the room turns toward the doors, and Dante Vasiliev, in the ruined silence of the St. Regis ballroom, opens his mouth. What comes out of it will change everything. But first, before that, before the words that split the room and the secret that splits the night, and the choice that one man makes in the next 4 minutes that cannot be taken back, there is one question sitting in the wreckage of this moment that nobody in this room has thought to ask yet. Why did Victor send the car? Why did he write a seat number on an index card in his own handwriting and send it to the one person in New York City who had the most reason not to be in this room, and the most reason to stay? And what did he need Elian to witness? Dante does not raise his voice. That is the terrifying part. A man who storms into a wedding with 2 armed bodyguards and slams the doors off their hinges should be screaming. Should be red-faced, vein-forward, the kind of loud that security can justify removing. Instead, Dante Vasiliev speaks at exactly the volume of a man at a dinner party, making a casual observation, and the room is so completely silent that every single syllable carries to the back wall. "I apologize for the interruption," he says. "I have documentation that makes this ceremony legally problematic. I thought everyone here would want to know before it became binding." He holds up a manila envelope. Nobody moves. Victor does not move. He stands at the altar with Camille's hand still in his, and something in the set of his shoulders changes by about 3 degrees, a tightening, a recalibration, but his face stays completely still. The face of a man who knew this was coming and decided how he was going to meet it somewhere quiet, days ago, alone. Elian sees that. He sees the non-surprise in Victor's stillness and files it in the part of his mind that is already assembling a picture that looks nothing like what he thought he was looking at. Briggs materializes from the left side of the room. He is moving toward Dante's two men with the unhurried, inevitable momentum of a freight train. And Dante's men see him coming and shift their weight, but do not move, because they are professionals, and professionals do not escalate until escalation is the instruction. Mr. Vasiliev, Briggs's voice is even. You weren't on the guest list. I know, Dante says pleasantly. That's rather the point. He opens the envelope. He removes 3 photographs and holds them up, fanned like playing cards, facing the crowd. The photographs are printed large enough that people in the middle rows can see them clearly, large enough that the journalists near the back with their press credentials and their sharp eyes can identify what they're looking at. Financial documents, account transfers, numbers with enough zeros that the people in this room who deal in numbers with zeros for a living go very still. These transactions, Dante says, were conducted through a shell company called Meridian Holdings between 2009 and 2011. Meridian Holdings is wholly owned by Reyes Global. The transactions total approximately $300 million and are routed through accounts in Istanbul, Monaco, and the Cayman Islands. He pauses. The receiving parties include 2 individuals currently under federal investigation. The room does not breathe. This information, Dante continues, was provided to me by someone inside Reyes Global who believed it was in the public interest. I agreed. And since Mr. Reyes is about to enter a legally binding financial merger with the Fontaine family, I thought the Fontaines deserved to know what they're actually merging with. He looks at Henri Fontaine, who is seated in the front row. Henri Fontaine looks back at him with the expression of a man watching a chess piece move exactly where he predicted it would move. That expression, that specific, calm, unsurprised expression on Henri Fontaine's 70-year-old face, is the second thing Elian sees that does not fit the picture he came in with. Victor releases Camille's hands. Not dramatically, not the gesture of a man abandoning something. The gesture of a man who has been holding something temporarily and has now reached the appointed moment to set it down. He turns to face the room. Dante, Victor says. 2 syllables, completely flat. The way you say the name of a problem you have already solved but haven't announced yet. Victor, Dante says, warm, delighted. You drove 4 hours from Boston for this. Private helicopter, actually. I much faster. Victor looks at the photographs. Those documents are real. The room goes 3 degrees colder. I know they're real, Victor continues. I've known about them for 14 months. My legal team has known about them for 11 months. The DOJ has known about them for 6 months, under a voluntary disclosure agreement that grants Reyes global immunity in exchange for full cooperation with an active federal investigation. He pauses. The investigation you are currently assisting, whether you know it or not. Dante's smile stays in place, but something behind it shifts. Something adjusts. You disclosed voluntarily, Dante says. I disclosed voluntarily. Then why? Dante stops. Why did I let you walk in here with those photographs? Victor says. Because I needed you in this room. Specifically in this room. I'm making that specific statement in front of these specific witnesses. He looks at Briggs. Please make sure Mr. Vasiliev and his associates are comfortable. They'll be speaking with federal agents within the hour. Dante's jaw tightens. For the first time since he walked through those doors, Dante Vasiliev looks like a man standing on ground that is moving. He looks back at Elian. And the thing that crosses his face in that moment, the naked, ugly thing that all his composure cannot cover, is not anger. It is something older and more dangerous. It is ownership. The look of a man who has decided that if he cannot have the game, he will ruin it. He drops the photographs. He looks at Elian and he says, loudly, clearly, for the entire room to hear, how far along is he? The silence that follows is a different kind of silence than before. The before silence was shock. This silence is the sound of 500 people simultaneously processing a sentence that has just rewritten the entire narrative of the last 4 minutes. Every head turns. 500 pairs of eyes find the alcove, find the white blazer, find Elian Anderson standing beside the 3rd column with his hand pressed flat against his abdomen and his face completely, unnaturally, devastatingly still. Elian does not move. He does not confirm it. He does not deny it. He simply stands in the wreckage of his own exposure and holds eye contact with Dante Vasiliev and breathes. One breath, two. His body has gone somewhere past fear, into a place where the temperature is very even and the edges of everything are very sharp, and the only thing that exists is the next correct action. And he does not know what the next correct action is. Victor is already moving, not toward Dante, not toward Briggs, not toward the federal agents who are, presumably, stationed somewhere in this building, waiting for exactly this moment. Toward Elian. He crosses the full length of the aisle, past the ivory roses, past the frozen guests, past Camille, who watches with her hands folded and her face in that impossibly composed stillness. And he arrives at the alcove, and he steps in front of Elian with the particular, deliberate geometry of a man putting his body between something he values and something that threatens it. He does not touch Elian. He does not look at Elian. He looks at Dante. "You're done here," Victor says. "Am I?" Dante says, because the room seems very interested in the answer to my question. "The room," Victor says. "I was about to watch you be escorted out of it. And the Omega you've been hiding for 18 months. The child you've been hiding for, what, 6 weeks? 8? Dante tilts his head. "How long did you know, Victor? Before you sent him to that wedding with a seat number and a secret? How long did you plan to keep using him as—" "Stop." The word comes from Elian, not loud, not broken, just a single clear syllable that lands in the room with more weight than anything Dante has said in the last 10 minutes. Everyone stops. Elian steps out from behind Victor. He is shaking. Barely, the kind of shaking that lives in the hands and the jaw and nowhere visible to the back rows. But Elian can feel it, the fine vibration of a body that is processing more than it was designed to hold. He steps out anyway. He stands in the open, in the light, or in front of 500 people and a man who has just announced his pregnancy to a ballroom, and he raises his chin exactly 1 degree. "Nobody," Elian says, "used me." He looks at Dante when he says it. He looks at Victor when he finishes it. And in the looking, in the single second of eye contact between the Omega and the Alpha in the middle of the most photographed room in New York City, something passes between them that has no name in any language that a press release can use. Dante sees it. His smile disappears completely. "You knew," Dante says to Elian. "Quietly now, not for the room. Just for him. You knew about the setup, he told you." Elian says nothing, which is its own kind of answer. Dante picks up the photographs from the floor. He straightens them carefully. He tucks them back into the manila envelope with the precise, unhurried movements of a man refusing to let anyone in the room see him come apart. He buttons his jacket. He looks at Victor. "This isn't finished," he says. "Yes," Victor says. "It is." Briggs and 2 additional security personnel arrive beside Dante's men with the wordless efficiency of a choreography that has been rehearsed. Dante allows himself to be walked toward the exit with the composure of a man choosing to leave rather than being removed. The distinction matters to him clearly more than anything else in the room. At the door he stops. He looks back one more time at Elian, and he says very quietly something that only Elian can hear from the alcove. 4 words. Elian's face does not change when he hears them, but his hand goes back to his abdomen, and this time it stays there. The doors close. The room exhales. And Elian Anderson stands in the middle of everything, exposed, trembling in the hands, carrying a secret that is no longer a secret, surrounded by 500 witnesses and 1 man who crossed an entire aisle to stand in front of him. And he tries to figure out what Dante just told him that has made staying in this room suddenly, urgently, feel like the most dangerous thing he has done all night. The 4 words were, "Check his other phone." Elian stands in a white-tiled anteroom off the main corridor of the St. Regis, a service space, mops in the corner, a utility sink, a single overhead light that hums, and he turns those 4 words over in his mind the way you press a bruise. Carefully, mapping the edges of the hurt. Check his other phone. Victor has 1 phone. Elian has seen it 1,000 times. Black case. I cracked in the lower left corner from where he dropped it on the roof terrace 18 months ago and refused to replace it because, as Victor explained with total seriousness, the crack was a reminder that he was capable of dropping things. A philosophical cracked phone case. That is the kind of man Victor Zaire Reyes is in private. One phone. Except Dante Vasiliev has spent 2 years learning Victor Reyes the way generals study terrain. Not because he loves him, but because he planned to destroy him, and you cannot destroy something you don't understand completely. And Dante said other phone with the flat certainty of a man stating a zip code. Not a guess. A fact. Elian leans against the utility sink and breathes. Outside the anteroom door, the ballroom has moved past shock into the particular social chaos of 500 wealthy people trying to determine whether they are witnessing a scandal or a performance, and which one requires what facial expression. He can hear the murmur of it through the door, a sound like disturbed water. His phone buzzes. Marcus Webb. Where are you? Victor is looking for you. Then, 10 seconds later, Marcus again. Elian. Do not leave the building. Then Victor in his own voice, through the door. Elian. He found the anteroom in under 4 minutes. Of course he did. I'm here, Elian says. The door opens. Victor fills the frame. Black tuxedo, no bow tie anymore, the top button of his shirt undone, which on Victor is the equivalent of another man coming completely undone. And he scans the room with the thoroughness of someone who has been in a lot of rooms that needed scanning, and then he looks at Elian, and the boardroom face drops. What is underneath it is not pretty. It is not the tender 2 a.m. face either. It is something in between, the face of a man who has been carrying something very heavy for a very long time, and has just put it down, and his arms are still shaking from the weight. He spoke to you, Victor says. 4 words, Elian says. Check his other phone. Victor goes still, a different kind of still than the altar still. The altar still was performance. This is the stillness of a man whose internal calculation has just run a number he did not prepare for. Victor, I can explain. I know you can explain. Elian's voice is even. And this is what people miss about Omegas who grew up invisible. They develop a particular devastating evenness. A calm that is not peace, but its opposite, the absence of any remaining margin. I'm not asking you to explain right now. I'm asking you one question, and I need you to answer it before you do anything else. Victor waits. Is there another phone? The utility light hums. Yes, Victor says. The word hits the room the way a stone hits still water. The impact is small, the rings are everything. Elian nods once, the nod of a man confirming a number he already ran. He pushes off the sink and straightens his blazer and looks at Victor with the blue eyes that have always, even in the most public rooms, seen him with an accuracy that Victor has never been fully comfortable with and has never once asked him to stop. I'd tell me what's on it, Elian says. Elian, tell me right now, not later, not after the federal agents and the Fontaine debrief and whatever cleanup Briggs is managing in that ballroom. Right now, in this room. Tell me what Dante knows is on that phone that he thought would break me. Victor looks at him for a long moment, then he reaches into his inside jacket pocket and removes it. It is a second phone. Smaller, older model. No case. He holds it out. Elian does not take it immediately. He looks at it in Victor's hand and does the very fast, very quiet internal math of a man deciding how much truth he can absorb in one night. He is already holding the fact of the ceremony, the exposure, the 4 words. He is holding a pregnancy that is no longer a secret. And he is holding the residual vibration of standing in front of 500 people and saying nobody used me and needing it to be true with a desperation he could not afford to show. He takes the phone. It is unlocked. The screen shows a message thread. The contact name at the top is a single initial, C. He reads the first 3 messages. Then he reads the next 6. By the 12th message, he understands what he is looking at, and his knees do not buckle because he has been expecting something bad and has been braced accordingly. But the specific badness of this, the specific shape of it, lands in a place he did not know was unguarded. C is not Camille. C is his own brother, Cassius Anderson. Cassius, who is 34 years old and lives in Chicago and designs furniture and calls Elian on his birthday and says things like, You deserve better than whatever that man is, in the mild, steady tone of someone who has never once raised his voice in his life. Cassius, who has been feeding Victor information about Dante for the last 8 months. Not just information, coordinates, movements, the specific schedule of Dante's private security rotation, the names of the accounts Dante used to build the Meridian leverage, the location of the Monaco holding company's filing office. 8 months of intelligence delivered in short, specific messages from a man who designs furniture in Chicago and has apparently been running a parallel operation that Elian knew absolutely nothing about. Elian looks up. Cassius, he says. Victor does not deny it. Why, Elian says, is my brother on a secondary phone? Because if Dante ever got access to my primary phone, he would have found Cassius. Yes. And you didn't tell me? No. Because. Victor's jaw moves. Because you would have told Cassius to stop. And Cassius didn't want to stop. What does that mean? It means your brother came to me, Victor says. 8 months ago, he showed up at my office, in person, unannounced. He sat down and he told me that he had been watching Dante for 6 months on his own and had information that could dismantle the leverage and end it, and that he was going to give it to me whether I wanted it or not. He said, Victor pauses, and something crosses his face that might, in a person with less structural discipline, be called tenderness. He said he was doing it because you would never ask anyone for help, and someone needed to. The utility light hums. Elian looks at the phone, at the 12 messages from his brother, at the 8 months of work that Cassius did in the silence between Chicago birthday calls, dismantling a trap that was set before Elian knew he was in one. His throat closes. He hands the phone back. He does not cry. He has not cried since the night he read the press release in Victor's sweater, and he has maintained that the way you maintain a structural wall, not because crying is wrong, but because if he starts, he is genuinely not certain where it stops, and he has already been exposed enough tonight. What does Dante think is on that phone? He asks. Evidence, Victor says. He thought Cassius was a double agent, feeding me information, and yes, but also feeding me false information that Dante planted. He thought the messages would show that the DOJ disclosure was built on compromised intelligence, that the immunity deal would unravel. Is it? Compromised? No. Victor holds the phone. Cassius is very careful. Dante underestimated him because he designs furniture. Elian makes a sound that is almost a laugh. Almost. Victor, he says. Yeah. There is so much you didn't tell me. I know. For months, there is so much that was happening that you let me believe was... I know, Elian. I thought you were marrying her because you wanted to. The words land in the mop bucket and utility sink room of the St. Regis, New York, with the weight of everything that has lived behind them for 6 weeks. Not dramatic, not theatrical, just true, just the quiet, unflattened shape of a hurt that has been carried a long distance. Victor crosses the room. He stands in front of Elian, and he takes Elian's face in both hands the way he did in the conference room 2 weeks ago before the lawyers walked in and made it impossible. And this time there are no lawyers, no cameras, no 500 people on the other side of a door. Just a utility light and a humming and the particular terrible intimacy of a tiled room that has no performance requirements. I know what you thought, Victor says. I know, and I'm asking you, I'm not explaining, I'm not justifying. I'm asking you to let me spend whatever time you need fixing the damage that caused, starting now, starting tonight. Elian looks at him. You have a wedding to finish, Elian says. No, Victor says. I have a wedding to stop. Something cold moves through Elian's chest. What? Camille knows, Victor says. She has known for 2 months. The ceremony tonight was the mechanism. We needed Dante inside the room, on record, in front of witnesses. It's done now. The filing goes through at midnight. There is no wedding. The room tips slightly. Camille is currently explaining this to her father, who also knows, who designed the French regulatory filing with Marcus, who has been waiting for this specific moment for 6 weeks. Victor's thumbs trace the line of Elian's cheekbones. There is no wedding, Elian. There never was. Elian's hands come up and grip Victor's wrists, not pushing them away. Holding. You built an entire fake wedding, Elian says. Yes. As a trap? Yes. And you sent me a seat number on an index card. I needed you to see it end, Victor says. I needed you to be in the room when it ended. Not hear about it later, not read a press release. His voice drops. You have had enough press releases. Elian closes his eyes. He is exhausted. He is profoundly, architecturally exhausted. The kind of tired that lives in the marrow. He is pregnant and exposed, and his brother has been running intelligence operations out of Chicago, and the man holding his face just told him the last 6 weeks were a construction, and he is standing in a utility room with champagne still on his shoe from an hour ago. He presses his forehead against Victor's. Just that. Just the contact. There's something else, Victor says, quietly, close. Elian opens his eyes. On Dante's 4 words, Victor says. He knew what was on that phone, meaning he had access to that thread at some point. He pauses, meaning he has someone on the inside, and we haven't found them yet. The utility light hums. Elian pulls back. Someone on the inside, someone who knew about Cassius, someone who knew about the secondary phone, someone who had access to a private thread that was running an 8-month intelligence operation. Someone who might also know the one thing that even Cassius doesn't know yet. The doctor's appointment scheduled for Thursday. The appointment that would determine whether the pregnancy is considered high risk. The appointment that Elian booked under a false name. Victor, Elian says, yeah, we have a problem. By 9 a.m. the following morning, 3 things are true. The first, the photographs Dante brought to the wedding are on the front page of every major financial outlet in the country, under headlines that range from Reyes Global under fire to the more creative Billionaire's secret Omega steals the show. The photographs of Elian, the ones taken inside the ballroom when Dante made his announcement, are on a different category of front page: entertainment, gossip. The ones that move faster and land harder and have a comment section instead of a byline. The second, Dante Vasiliev left the St. Regis at 8:47 p.m. and was on a private flight out of Teterboro by 10:15. The federal agents Victor mentioned were not in the end stationed in the building. The DOJ mechanism Marcus built was not a trap door. It was a filing, and filings take time. And time is the one thing Dante has always understood better than anyone. He is gone. The third, Elian's Thursday appointment has been cancelled. Not by Elian. He discovers this at 9:03 a.m., standing in his apartment kitchen in Victor's grey cashmere sweater. The same one, the one from before, the one he never gave back, looking at his phone. A text from the medical office. Your appointment on Thursday, 10 a.m., has been cancelled at the request of the scheduling party. Please call to reschedule. He did not reschedule. He did not cancel. He calls the office. The receptionist is apologetic and confused. The cancellation came through an online portal from the patient account at 11:47 p.m. last night, while Elian was in a utility room at the St. Regis not sleeping, while the ballroom was still being photographed by journalists, while Victor was on the phone with Marcus and Camille's father and the 3 lawyers who exist specifically to handle nights like this one. He thanks the receptionist. He hangs up. He puts his phone face down on the counter. He stands in the kitchen for 90 seconds. Then he picks the phone back up and calls Victor. Victor answers on the first ring, which means he has not slept either. My appointment was cancelled, Elian says. A pause, then, I know, I'm already looking at it. The portal was accessed from my patient account. I know. Only 3 people have that login. Me, my GP, and one other person, Victor says. I know, Elian. A sound on his end, something moving, a door. Lower. I'm looking at it right now. Who is the third person? Victor doesn't answer immediately. Victor. Who did I give that login to? Cassius, Victor says. You gave it to Cassius 6 weeks ago, in case of emergency. The kitchen is very quiet. So either Dante got to Cassius, Elian says, or Cassius is the inside source. Those aren't the only 2 options. Name a third. A longer pause. Someone accessed Cassius's devices, Victor says. His laptop, his phone. Someone with proximity and knowledge of what to look for. Dante's people. Or someone working with Dante that we haven't identified yet. Elian sits down on the kitchen floor, not dramatically. His legs simply make the decision for him, the way bodies sometimes do when the mind has been running at full capacity for too long and something has to give. And he sits on the tile with his back against the cabinet and his hand on his abdomen, and he looks at the ceiling of his apartment. He knows about the appointment, Elian says. Yes. He knows it's high-risk monitoring. He may. Which means he knows something I haven't told you yet. Elian closes his eyes. The doctor flagged something at the last visit. She wants me in for an additional ultrasound. Something about positioning. She said it might be nothing. She said it might require... He stops. I didn't tell you because I was still processing it, and I didn't want you making decisions based on... Elian. Victor's voice does something it almost never does. It cracks, just the edge of it. Just the last consonant of his name, cracking like that chip in the phone case from the roof terrace. How long have you known? 4 days. The silence on Victor's end is enormous. I'm coming to you, Victor says. You have lawyers. I'm coming to you right now. The press is outside my building. I know. Victor, there are photographers on the sidewalk. If you come here, they'll... I'm already in the car, Victor says. He hangs up. Elian sits on the kitchen floor and breathes. He thinks about the appointment, the ultrasound, the doctor's careful, measured voice saying probably nothing. But I want to be thorough. I want to have eyes on it before the second trimester. I want to be certain. The particular chill of medical certainty, not the diagnosis, just the wanting to be sure, which is its own species of dread. He thinks about Dante knowing. Dante, who has just demonstrated that he can reach into Elian's private medical records through a patient portal access he obtained through Cassius's devices. Dante, who has already shown he is willing to announce a pregnancy in front of 500 wedding guests. Dante, who said this isn't finished with the particular calm of a man who has an inventory. What else does Dante have? The door buzzer sounds 14 minutes later. Victor comes in without waiting. He has a key, has had a key for 8 months, which is its own conversation that belongs to a different morning. He is still in last night's clothes. His tuxedo jacket is gone. He looks like a man who has been doing mathematics in the back of a car for the last 20 minutes and does not like the answers. He finds Elian on the kitchen floor. He sits down next to him. On the floor. In a bespoke tuxedo shirt, on a Tuesday morning kitchen tile, because Victor Zaire Reyes will, it turns out, sit on any floor that Elian is sitting on. Elian noted this early and has never forgotten it, and will never tell Victor how much it means to him because some information is too useful to spend. Tell me about the appointment, Victor says. Positioning issue. She saw something at the edge of the imaging. Could be nothing. Could be placenta-related. She wants another look before 12 weeks. When is 12 weeks? 18 days. Victor does the math. He does not say it aloud, which means the math produces a number he doesn't want to put into the room. We rebook under a different name, he says, different clinic, different city if necessary. We can't just... Boston has a clinic, 3 hours, private car, no press trail. I have a physician there who doesn't talk. You have a physician who doesn't talk. Yes. Elian looks at him. Why do you have a physician in Boston who doesn't talk? Victor's jaw moves. I was shot in 2019. I chose not to publicize it. The morning reassembles itself around this new fact. You were shot. Twice. Left shoulder, right side. I'm fine. I've seen your left shoulder. The scarring is minimal. Victor, I have been... Elian stops, pinches the bridge of his nose. We are going to have an extremely long conversation about the number of things you have not told me. I know. It's going to take several evenings. I know. I'm going to need you to not interrupt. Understood. Elian leans his head back against the cabinet. The inside source, he says. We need to find them before Thursday, before the rebooked appointment, before Dante can use whatever else he has. Marcus is already on it, Victor says. He traced the portal access to a device registered to a gym membership in Hoboken. Cassius doesn't live in Hoboken. No, but one of Dante's mid-level associates does. Marcus is pulling surveillance footage from the gym. How long? 6 hours, maybe 8. 8 hours. In 8 hours they might have a name. A face, a thread that unravels whatever Dante has assembled in the space between last night's ballroom and whatever he is building toward next. Or in 8 hours? Nothing. And Dante makes his next move first. The kitchen is quiet. Somewhere outside, a car horn. New York, continuing, indifferent. Victor puts his hand over Elian's hand on the tile. He doesn't say anything. He just leaves it there. Elian looks at their hands on the kitchen floor and thinks, 18 months. He thinks, a fake wedding and a real pregnancy and a brother running intelligence out of Chicago and a man who was shot twice and hid it. He thinks, all of this has been happening around me, and I have been standing in the middle of it, believing the worst possible version of it, and I stayed anyway. He thinks, what does it mean that I stayed? His phone buzzes on the counter above him. Unknown number. He reaches up and takes it. He answers, Elian Anderson. Not Dante's voice, a woman's voice, smooth, accented, not unfamiliar. Not a voice he recognizes exactly, but a voice that carries the particular confidence of someone who has been watching long enough to use a first name as a greeting. Who is this? Elian says. My name is Yara, the woman says. I worked with Dante for 3 years, and I left 6 months ago because of something I found. A pause. Something I think you need to see before Thursday. Victor is already watching Elian's face. He watches Elian's face go very still, the way it went still in the ballroom. That specific stillness that is not calm, but its opposite. What did you find? Elian says. Yara tells him, and the kitchen floor is suddenly not a floor anymore. It is the top of something, the edge of something, the moment just before the drop. Because what Yara found, what she has been carrying for 6 months, alone, waiting for the right moment, is not about Dante. It is about Victor. Elian hangs up the phone. He does not move for 11 seconds. Victor counts them. And he knows because he is watching Elian's face with the focused attention of a man whose entire internal threat response system has just fired simultaneously, and when Elian goes that particular quality of still, Victor has learned to count. 11 seconds. Then Elian stands up from the kitchen floor. He goes to the window. He looks out at the street below. The press van, the 2 photographers on the sidewalk, a woman walking a dog who has no idea that anything significant is happening in the building above her. Normal New York, oblivious and moving. Elian, Victor says, still on the floor. Get up, Elian says. Victor gets up. Tell me about Dio Mensah, Elian says. The name lands in the kitchen the way Yara intended it to land, like something dropped from height, from precision, aimed. Victor does not move. And he does not go still the way the boardroom stillness works. He goes still the way buildings go still before the foundation shifts. A deeper, structural stillness, the kind that precedes something large. How do you know that name? Victor says. Not a question, the syntax of a man who already knows the answer and is buying 2 seconds of composure. Yara, Elian says. Victor closes his eyes. Tell me who he is, Elian says. He's not a threat to you, Victor says. He's not a threat to this. Whatever she told you. She told me his name and the city and the date, Elian says. She told me enough to search. I'm asking you to tell me the rest before I do that, because I would rather hear it from you. The window light is pale and cold. Tuesday morning, February, the particular grey gold that New York manages in winter when it is trying to be beautiful and failing slightly. Victor opens his eyes. Dio Mensah, he says, 31 years old. He lives in Atlanta. He is... Victor stops, runs one hand across his jaw. The gesture of a man locating language for something he has never had to put into language before. He is someone I knew in 2018, before I met you, before any of this. We were involved for 7 months. 7 months, Elian says. It ended. Not badly. There was no conflict, no betrayal. We wanted different things. He left New York. I didn't hear from him again. Until, Victor looks at him. Until when, Victor? Until 4 months ago, Victor says. He reached out, through a mutual contact. And he said he needed to speak with me about something that could not go through any channel that Dante might access. A pause. I agreed to meet him. You met him. Once, in person, in Atlanta. The press van outside has moved. Elian watches it go. He is tracking the van the way you track something peripheral when the center is too sharp to look at directly. What did he tell you? Elian says. He told me that Dante approached him last year, Victor says. Dante knew about our history. He tried to use Dio as a source, wanted information about my business practices from 2018, from when Dio and I were... He stops. Dio refused. He came to tell me that Dante was looking for leverage from that period. Personal leverage, not financial. Elian turns from the window. He looks at Victor directly for the first time since the call ended. And the blue eyes do what they always do. See past the surface, past the architecture, into the room underneath the room. And you didn't tell me, Elian says. No. Because it was before you. Because it had nothing to do with you. Because I thought telling you about a 7-month relationship from 4 years ago, in the middle of everything that was already happening, would what? Victor looks at him. Would hurt you in a way I couldn't justify. The kitchen is very quiet. Elian thinks about this. He turns it over the way he turned the paper bag over in that diner 2 months ago. Carefully, looking for the edges, understanding the dimensions. Is Dio connected to the inside source, he asks. No, Yara's connection to Dio is what concerns me. She should not have known about him. The meeting in Atlanta was private. And if she has that name, it means Dante has deeper access to my past than we accounted for. Or it means Yara isn't what she's presenting herself as. Victor's eyes sharpen. Say that again. She said she left Dante 6 months ago, Elian says. She called me, an unknown number, the morning after the wedding. She has the name of someone from your past that you kept off every record. She wants to show me something before Thursday. He pauses. That is a very specific set of information for someone who walked away. The kitchen rebalances. Victor picks up his own phone. Marcus, he says, the moment the call connects. Yara, find everything, specifically when she left Dante's organization and who she was in contact with immediately after. He hangs up. He looks at Elian. If she's still working for him, Elian starts. Then the call was a test, Victor says, checking how much she could shake loose with a single name. And we just answered. We just answered. The weight of this settles over the kitchen like weather. Elian stands at the window. Victor stands near the table. Between them is a morning that has already produced 3 significant crises before 10 a.m., and the day is not finished. Elian's hand goes to his abdomen. Victor crosses the room. He stands in front of Elian and does not touch him and does not speak. He just positions himself between Elian and the window, between Elian and the street, the press van, the photographers, all of it, with the same particular geometry as the ballroom, the geometry of a body that has decided where it belongs. I need you to understand something, Victor says. Okay. The things I didn't tell you, Cassius, the Atlanta meeting, the second phone, none of them were about keeping you outside. They were about keeping you safe from the outside. He looks at Elian. That is not the same thing. I understand now that it felt like the same thing. I understand now that from where you were standing, silence looks like distance, regardless of the reason. Elian holds his gaze. I am not good, Victor says, at asking for help. No, Elian says, I am learning. You're slow. I know. Elian exhales, long and deliberate, the breath of a man letting something go that he has been holding in his chest for months. Not everything, not the whole inventory of it, but enough to breathe around. Thursday, he says, Boston. A different name. Yes. And we find Yara before then. Marcus will have something by tonight. And Dio, I will call him myself, Victor says, in front of you. Whatever he tells me, you hear it the same time I do. No more filtered information. Elian looks at him. Victor, he says. Yeah. The Anderson Arts Initiative, the name on the building. Victor waits. When did you decide to do that? Victor thinks. Really thinks, not the polished answer, the actual memory. The day I read the press statement, he says, the engagement announcement. I read it and I thought... He stops. I thought that if I was about to do the worst possible thing, I needed to do something true at the same time. Something that couldn't be taken back. He looks at the window. Your name on something permanent. That was the truth I could put down while everything else was moving. The morning light shifts. A cloud moves off the sun and the kitchen goes briefly gold. Elian reaches out and presses one hand flat against Victor's chest. Not a push. Not a lean. Just contact. Just the weight of one hand finding the steady beat underneath the tuxedo shirt. Victor's hand covers it. They stand in the kitchen like that, in the gold light, while New York moves outside and a press van circles, and somewhere across the city, Marcus Webb is pulling surveillance footage from a gym in Hoboken, and Dante Vasiliev is on a plane that landed 3 hours ago. The phone on the counter buzzes. Marcus, Victor answers it on speaker. I have the gym footage, Marcus says. The device that accessed Elian's portal. I have a face. A pause. You're going to want to sit down for this. Who is it? Victor says. Marcus says the name. Elian's hand drops from Victor's chest because the name Marcus says is not a stranger's. It is not one of Dante's associates. It is not Yara or the Hoboken gym member or anyone that can be categorized as outside. The name Marcus says belongs to someone who has been inside Elian's world for longer than Victor has. And the clock just went from 8 hours to none. The name Marcus says is Terrell. Terrell Anderson Wade, Elian's cousin, 29 years old, graphic designer. The man who taught Elian how to ride a bike on a sidewalk in Brooklyn when they were 7 and 9 respectively, and who called Elian every New Year's Eve without fail for 22 years, and who sat in the second row at every gallery opening Elian ever attended and clapped the loudest every single time. Terrell. Elian does not speak. Victor watches his face go through something that has no name. Not betrayal exactly, not shock exactly, something that sits between the two, the way a body sits between standing and falling in the half second before gravity makes the decision. You're certain, Victor says into the phone. The gym card swipe puts him at the location at 11:41 p.m., Marcus says. The device that accessed the portal logged in at 11:47, 6 minutes. He walked in, used the device, walked out. The gym camera has his face on the way in and the way out. It's him, Victor. Does he know we have the footage? Not yet. Keep it that way. Give me 2 hours. Victor ends the call. He looks at Elian. Elian is standing at the kitchen window again. His back is to the room. His shoulders are up. Not tense in the way of someone preparing to fight, but in the way of someone absorbing a blow that already landed and trying to determine the extent of the damage. Terrell, Elian says to the window. Yes. He's been in my apartment. Elian's voice is very even, the devastating evenness. He has a spare key. He's watered my plants when I traveled. He knows my email passwords. He knows my doctor because he drove me to the first prenatal appointment when I couldn't. Elian stops. A breath. And I couldn't face it alone, and I called him. Victor says nothing. He drove me, Elian says. He sat in the waiting room. He brought me tea from the cart downstairs, and he sat in that waiting room for 1 hour and 40 minutes. And when I came out, he hugged me and said, whatever you need. Whenever you need it, I am here. The morning holds still. How long, Elian says, not to Victor, to the window, to the grey February sky. How long has he been feeding information to Dante? We don't know yet, Victor says quietly. Since the beginning? Elian turns. His eyes are dry. His jaw is set. Was he the reason Dante knew about us? Was he the reason Dante knew to start building the leverage when he did? Was Terrell the one who... His voice cuts, comes back. Was my cousin the reason all of this started? Victor crosses to him. We are going to find out the exact shape of it, Victor says. All of it, every piece. And then you will have every fact you need to decide what you do with it. I need to talk to him. Elian. He's family, Elian says. It is not a defense of Terrell. It is a statement of what this costs. Family is the specific weight of it, the distinction between a stranger's betrayal and this kind, the kind that lives inside the architecture of who you think you are. Not yet, Victor says. If he knows we're moving, he tells Dante, we need to know what Dante has first, all of it, before Terrell knows he's been found. Elian looks at him. How long? Tonight. Give Marcus until tonight. 8 hours. Again. The same 8 hours as before, recycled, a currency the morning keeps spending. Okay, Elian says. He says it the way people say, okay, when it is not okay, and both parties understand this, and the agreement being made is not about the okay, but about the moving forward despite it. Victor nods. He does not offer comfort that would be too large for the moment. He has learned in 18 months of knowing Elian Anderson that comfort offered at the wrong size is worse than none. He offers instead what he can: proximity and silence and the willingness to stand in a kitchen for as long as standing is required. Elian picks up his phone. Terrell has texted him this morning. Of course he has. A perfectly calibrated, devastatingly normal text sent at 8:22 a.m. Saw the news. You okay? Call me when you can. I'm here. Elian reads it 3 times. He does not respond. Or he puts the phone face down on the counter and he looks at the ceiling of his apartment, and he does the thing he has been doing since February of last year when all of this began. He manages. He organizes the interior landscape of a situation that is trying to level him, and he finds the load-bearing walls and he holds them. Victor, he says to the ceiling. Yeah. After tonight, after Marcus and the footage and whatever Dante has, after all of that. He lowers his gaze. I need you to promise me one thing. Name it. No more secondary information, no more managed versions, no more decisions made on my behalf about what I can handle. He meets Victor's eyes. I am carrying your child on a kitchen floor in a sweater I stole 7 months ago in the middle of the worst week of my life. I can handle information, Victor. What I cannot handle is being the last person in the room to have it. The silence stretches. Yes, Victor says, no qualification, no caveat. You have my word. Elian nods. He pushes off the counter. He goes to the cabinet above the refrigerator and takes down a box of jasmine tea and fills the electric kettle and sets it to boil. The most ordinary sequence of movements imaginable. Tea in a crisis. The body insisting on the ritual of small, manageable things when the large things are beyond managing. Victor watches him do this, and then Victor Zaire Reyes, CEO of Reyes Global Holdings, man who was shot twice in 2019 and did not publicize it, man who built a fake wedding as a federal trap, man who named a building after the person he loves without asking, goes to the cabinet next to the refrigerator, takes down 2 mugs, and then sets them on the counter next to the kettle. He does not say anything. He does not need to. The kettle boils at 9:47 a.m. Marcus calls back at 9:49. I have more, Marcus says, and the tone of his voice reaches through the phone and changes the temperature of the kitchen by 3 degrees. The gym footage was only the Tuesday access. I pulled the full 30-day history on the portal account. A pause. Terrell accessed it 4 times. The first time was 9 weeks ago. 9 weeks ago. Before the wedding was announced. Before the ballroom. Before any of it was in motion in any way that should have required a portal access. 9 weeks ago, when Elian had just found out he was pregnant. He went looking, Elian says. His voice is flat. He didn't stumble onto it. He went looking 9 weeks ago because he already knew what to look for. That's what the timestamps say, Marcus says. Pull his financials, Victor says. Already running. I'll have them in an hour. And find Yara. Whatever she knows about Terrell's connection to Dante, I need it tonight. Working on it. The call ends. The tea is steeping. Elian picks up his mug and holds it in both hands and looks at the steam rising from it, and he does the math. 9 weeks. Terrell knew 9 weeks ago, which means Dante knew 9 weeks ago, which means everything that happened at the wedding, the photographs, the specific targeting of Elian in the crowd, the announcement of the pregnancy with that particular weaponized precision, none of it was improvised. It was built, piece by piece, week by week, and fed by the cousin who watered his plants and brought him tea in a waiting room and said, whatever you need, whenever you need it, I am here. The mug is warm in Elian's hands. Victor, he says. Yeah. Dante never actually lost last night, did he? Elian says. The ballroom, the filing, the escort out. He let all of that happen. Victor's jaw tightens. He already knows where this is going. He is building to something else, Elian says, something bigger than the Meridian leverage, something he's been building for 9 weeks with information from inside my life. Yes, Victor says. What is it? Victor sets his mug down. I don't know yet, he says, but I think... He stops, starts again. I think it involves Thursday. The Thursday appointment, the Boston clinic, the high-risk monitoring. Elian looks at him. He would need Terrell to confirm the new location, Elian says. The rebooked appointment, which means we haven't booked it yet, which means right now Dante doesn't have it. Right. Which means right now we have something he doesn't. A window, Victor says. Exactly. Elian sets his own mug down. So here is what we're going to do. We are going to book the Boston appointment. We are going to tell Terrell. He holds up one hand at Victor's expression. We are going to tell Terrell the wrong location. And we are going to watch where Dante shows up. The kitchen goes very still. Victor looks at Elian. He looks at him the way he looked at him at that bar 18 months ago when Elian said there is a difference between funding and curating, with the specific and alive attention of a man who has just encountered something that matches his frequency exactly. That, Victor says slowly, is either the best idea in this room or the most dangerous one. In my experience, Elian says, those are usually the same idea. Victor is quiet for 3 full seconds, then he picks up his phone and calls Marcus. Change of plan, he says, and the window opens. And somewhere across the city, Dante Vasiliev is sitting in a hotel room with a plan that is about to step into a room that has been rearranged without his knowledge. He does not know it yet, but he will know it by Thursday. And Thursday is only 48 hours away. The fake appointment is booked at 10:15 a.m. Tuesday for a clinic in Philadelphia. Not Boston, not New York. Philadelphia, 3 hours south. A city with enough medical infrastructure to be believable and enough distance to require planning. Marcus creates the booking through a legitimate patient portal under a name that sounds real, attached to an address in Chestnut Hill and an insurance ID that will pass a surface check and collapse under anything deeper. They need it to last 48 hours. That is all. 48 hours of Dante believing that Elian's Thursday appointment is in Philadelphia, at a clinic on Spruce Street, at 10 a.m. 48 hours for Marcus to finish pulling Terrell's financials. 48 hours to find Yara and determine whether she is an asset or a weapon. 48 hours to build enough of a case that whatever Dante walks into on Thursday, he walks into finished. The plan is clean. The plan lasts until Tuesday at 3:17 p.m. When Terrell Anderson Wade walks through Elian's apartment door with his spare key and a brown paper bag from the deli 2 blocks over and says, "I brought you the turkey avocado because you haven't eaten today. I can tell, you never eat when you're stressed," and sets it on the counter and opens his arms for a hug. Elian lets him. He stands in the kitchen and lets his cousin hug him and breathes through it. The familiar smell of Terrell's jacket, cedar and something warm, and counts the seconds and keeps his hands steady and his face in the expression of a man who is exhausted and grateful and not at all running a counter-operation with the man currently sitting in the living room. Victor is in the living room. Terrell does not know Victor is in the living room. This becomes apparent 6 seconds into the hug, and when Terrell pulls back and registers the black tuxedo shirt draped over the back of the couch, and the second mug on the coffee table, and the very specific quality of attentive silence coming from around the corner. "Is someone here?" Terrell says. "Yes," Elian says. Victor appears in the kitchen doorway. Terrell goes very still. He goes still the way Victor goes still, completely, structurally, the stillness of a person whose internal system has just triggered something large and is managing the response before it reaches the surface. It is, Elian realizes in this moment, a tell. He has never seen Terrell go still like that before, because he has never, before this moment, been watching for it. "Victor," Terrell says. His voice is warm, practiced. "Terrell," Victor says, "I didn't know you were here." "I know," Victor says. A beat. And the 3 of them in the kitchen with the turkey avocado sandwich and the jasmine tea, and the morning that has been running at full pressure since 7:43 p.m. the previous night. Terrell looks at Elian. His face does the thing that faces do when they are recalibrating. The slight adjustment around the eyes, the micro-calculation. Then it settles back into the familiar warmth. The cousin face. The bike riding in Brooklyn face. "How are you holding up?" he asks Elian. "The news this morning was..." "Terrell," Elian says. "Yeah." "How long have you known Dante Vasiliev?" The kitchen freezes. Terrell's face does not collapse. This is the thing that surprises Elian most. He expected collapse, expected the immediate fracture of exposure. Expected the look of a man caught. Instead, Terrell's face does something slower and more complex. It closes. Unlike a door being shut from the inside, carefully, by someone who has rehearsed the motion. Elian. I need you to tell me the truth, Elian says. Not because I have evidence, not because Victor is standing in that doorway. Because you brought me tea in a waiting room 9 weeks ago, and I need to know if that was real, or if that was information gathering. Silence. The refrigerator hums. Terrell puts both hands on the counter. He looks at them. His jaw works. When he looks up, his eyes are wet. And this, more than anything, is the thing that costs Elian the most, because it means the hurt on Terrell's face is real. And real hurt in the person who caused yours is the most confusing accounting in the world. It was both, Terrell says. 3 words, both honest and devastating. He approached me 14 months ago, Terrell says. Before you and Victor were public. Before any of it. He knew we were close. He said. Terrell stops, swallows. He said Victor was dangerous. He said he had documentation that Victor had hurt people. Financially, legally, people who trusted him. He said you were in danger and that someone who loved you needed to keep an eye on things. Elian looks at him. And you believed him, Elian says. I didn't not believe him, Terrell says. I didn't know Victor. I knew you were with someone powerful and private, and that you were happier than I'd seen you in years, and that scared me a little. Because that combination… He looks at Victor. That combination doesn't always end well. What did you give him? Victor says. From the doorway. Quiet. Terrell looks at him. At first, nothing that seemed like much. Your schedule. What neighborhoods Elian was in. Whether you were traveling. Terrell's voice is careful, factual. The voice of a man delivering a confession he has been running through his head for months. Then he asked about the medical stuff. After Elian told me about the pregnancy, he said it was for safety. That if something happened, he needed to know where Elian would be, so he could… He lied to you, Elian says. I know that now. He used you to track me. He used the portal access to find the appointment location, and he used what you gave him to target me in that ballroom last night in front of 500 people. Elian's voice does not rise. It does not need to. The evenness carries everything. My pregnancy, my body. He announced it to a room because you gave him the information to aim with. The wet in Terrell's eyes tips over, and he does not wipe it. I didn't know that's what it was for, he says. I swear to you, Elian, I thought I was protecting you. I know, Elian says. And he does know. That is the specific cruelty of this. He knows Terrell. He has known Terrell for 29 years. He knows that the man standing at his counter is not a villain. He is a cousin who loved him perfectly, who was manipulated by someone with 16 months of practice at exactly this type of manipulation, who made catastrophic choices inside what he believed was protection. None of that makes the choices smaller. All of it makes this moment harder. I need you to do something, Elian says. Terrell nods. Once, he will do anything. This is visible on his face, the unconditional, desperate willingness of someone trying to reverse what cannot be reversed. I need you to call Dante, Elian says, right now, in front of us. Terrell's eyes widen. I need you to tell him the Thursday appointment is in Philadelphia, Spruce Street Clinic, 10 a.m. Elian meets his cousin's eyes. And then I need you to stay here, with us, and not contact him again. He'll know something's wrong if I just… Tell him you're worried about being caught, Victor says from the doorway. Tell him Elian is suspicious and you need to go quiet for a few days. He'll believe that. He'll think you're protecting yourself. Terrell looks between them. You've already booked a fake appointment, Terrell says. Not a question. Yes, Elian says. Terrell exhales, a long gutted sound. You knew before I walked in. We knew this morning. He absorbs this. And the weight of it, that they fed him tea and open arms and let him deliver his brown paper bag and stood in the kitchen while he confessed and already had the footage, already had the timestamps, already had the full shape of it before he opened the door. Okay, Terrell says. He takes his phone out of his pocket. His hands are not steady. Okay, I'll call him. He dials. Dante answers in 2 rings, and Terrell Anderson Wade, with his wet eyes and his unsteady hands and 29 years of loving his cousin imperfectly and the particular immovable instinct to fix what he broke, delivers the false location in a voice that holds completely. When he hangs up, the kitchen is quiet for a long moment. Then Victor says, "Thank you." Terrell looks at him. Something complex moves across his face. It is not gratitude. It is not relief. It is something closer to the specific, sober feeling of a man beginning to understand the distance between where he stood and where he should have stood, and that the walk between those 2 points is going to be long, and that he is going to have to take every step of it. "Is it enough?" Terrell asks. "What I just did, is it enough to—" "It's a start," Elian says. Not a yes. Not a forgiveness. A start, the most honest word available. Terrell nods. He sits down at the kitchen table. He does not go anywhere. And the 48-hour clock resumes. 31 hours remain when Marcus calls at 8 p.m. with the financials. Terrell received 11 wire transfers over 14 months. Small amounts. Nothing that would flag an audit. Nothing that would show up on a surface check. The total is $43,000. $43,000. The price of 9 weeks of Elian's medical records and 17 months of his location data and the announcement of his pregnancy in a room full of cameras. Elian looks at the number on Marcus's screen share. He does not say anything. He closes the laptop. He goes to bed at 9 p.m. because the child inside him has decided, with the supreme indifference of someone who has not yet learned that the timing is terrible, that tonight is the night that movement becomes undeniable. A pressure, a shift, something that pushes against Elian's hand when he rests it on his abdomen in the dark of his bedroom. He lies in the dark. He feels it again. And despite everything, despite Terrell on the couch in the living room, and Dante moving toward a clinic on a street that does not have his name in its system, and Victor on a call in the kitchen that has been going for 2 hours, despite every weight on this night, Elian smiles. Small, private, just for the 2 of them. 27 hours until Thursday. Dante has no idea what is waiting for him in Philadelphia. What is actually waiting for him is nothing. An empty clinic. A name that leads nowhere. And behind that nothing, 8 federal agents, 2 state investigators, Marcus Webb with a full financial case, and Victor Zaire Reyes, who has been preparing this specific moment for 6 months and is not going to waste it. But there is one thing none of them have accounted for. Yara calls at 11:58 p.m. "He changed the plan," she says. "I'm without introduction." Her voice is clipped and urgent in a way that is different from the Tuesday morning call, stripped of the smooth performance, raw at the edges. He knows about the fake appointment. I don't know how. But he knows it's wrong. And he is not going to Philadelphia. Elian sits up in the dark. "Where is he going?" Elian says. Yara says the address. It is not a clinic. It is Elian's apartment building. The call ends at 11:59 p.m. Elian is out of bed before midnight. He does not turn on the lights. He moves through his apartment in the dark with the particular sightless precision of a person who has lived in the same space long enough that the furniture is memorized by the body. Around the chair, past the dresser, 3 steps to the door, hand on the frame. He opens the bedroom door. The living room is dim. 1 lamp. And Victor is at the kitchen table with his laptop and the remains of a coffee that went cold an hour ago. Still on the phone, still working, the way Victor Reyes has apparently been working since approximately 2018 without stopping. Terrell is on the couch, asleep. His face, in sleep, is the face Elian has known for 29 years. Open, younger than awake. The face of the boy who held the back of a bicycle seat on a Brooklyn sidewalk and said, "I got you. I got you. I won't let go." Elian looks at him for 1 second. Then he goes to Victor. "He knows," Elian says, low and quiet. "The fake appointment. He figured it out. Yara just called. He's not going to Philadelphia. He's coming here." Victor closes the laptop in one motion. He is already standing. "When?" Victor says. She didn't know exactly. She said tonight or early morning. She said he is. Victor, she said he is not coming to talk. The information lands. Victor does not waste 2 seconds deciding how to feel about it. He moves straight from received to response, the way his mind always moves, the way it was built to move, cutting out the space between understanding and action like a shortcut through a system that other people take the long way around. He calls Briggs. Briggs answers before the first ring completes. Vasiliev is incoming, Victor says. Elian's building. Unknown timing, tonight or 0600 earliest. I need a perimeter. Already have 2 downstairs from the press situation, Briggs says. I'll add 4. You want the street-level approach covered? Everything. Service entrance, parking garage, roof access if there is one. There's a roof access. I saw it in the building schematics. Victor ends the call. He looks at Elian. Pack a bag. I'm not leaving my apartment, Elian says. Elian, I am not leaving my own apartment because Dante Vasiliev has decided to make a house call. His voice is quiet, but it has the particular unmovable quality of something set in concrete. I am done being moved around by this man. I am done making myself smaller and quieter and easier to ignore. This is my home. Victor looks at him. He looks at him with all the things that live in him that do not have press release language. The 2 a.m. cashmere face, the roof terrace face, the kitchen floor face. He looks at Elian the way a man looks at something that is simultaneously the most complicated and the most essential thing in his life. Okay, Victor says, okay? You stay, I stay. Briggs has the building. Marcus is tracking Dante's last known location. He picks up his phone again. But you tell me if anything changes. Anything. Yes. Elian crosses to the couch and puts his hand on Terrell's shoulder. Terrell comes awake fast, the fast, alert waking of someone who has not actually been fully asleep, but has been waiting in the near dark for something to change. He knows, Elian says. Terrell sits up. How? I don't know yet. Terrell looks at his hands, the same hands that dialed Dante at noon with a false address. Steady then. They are not steady now. He has someone else, Terrell says. Besides me, he has another source. I told you a fake location, and he found out it was fake. Which means he has another way in, Victor says from the kitchen. He is already on the phone with Marcus. Terrell stands up. He moves to the window, then stops himself, pulling back from it, because standing in a lit window at midnight when Dante Vasiliev is incoming is exactly the kind of announcement nobody needs to make. The building's covered, Elian says. I know. Terrell looks at him. I want to help. Tell me what to do. Elian studies him for a moment. 29 years of a face, the full catalogue of it, the good parts and the parts that just confessed themselves in a kitchen this afternoon. Both things at once, without resolution. That is the particular ongoing work of loving someone who failed you, holding both parts in the same hand. Stay away from the windows, Elian says, and tell me if you think of anything else Dante knows that we don't. Terrell nods. He sits back down. The apartment settles into a tense, unwatchful quiet, the kind of quiet that has edges. Victor at the kitchen table, Terrell on the couch, Elian in the chair by the bedroom door with his phone in his hand and his feet flat on the floor and his mind doing the fast architectural work of mapping every variable. Yara, that is the variable he cannot map. She called him, twice now. She gave him information that was accurate, the name Dio, the timing of Dante's plan change. She walked away from Dante 6 months ago, allegedly. She has been, in every interaction, one step ahead of the position she should be in if she was still working for him. But she knew about the fake appointment almost as fast as Dante did, which means either she is still inside Dante's information network, close enough to hear plan changes in real time, or she is the second source, the one that confirmed to Dante that the Philadelphia booking was false. Or both. Both things at once, without resolution. At 2:14 a.m., Marcus calls. Found the second source, Marcus says. It's not a person. Victor puts him on speaker. Dante has a monitoring application on the Reyes Global Internal Network, Marcus says. Specifically on the communication channel between my machine and yours. He's had access for, based on the installation timestamp, 4 months. 4 months. Before the fake wedding, before any of this was in motion. He's been reading our communications, Victor says, selectively. The application flags specific keywords: medical, appointment, clinic, location, Elian. Anything that hits those words gets forwarded. Marcus pauses. I sent the Philadelphia booking confirmation through internal comms, and he had it in 12 minutes. Can you shut it down? Victor says. Already did. 10 minutes ago. Marcus's voice carries something dry. But he has what he has. The question is what he plans to do with the address. He's coming here, Victor says. Not Philadelphia. Yara confirmed it. A beat. Then we use that, Marcus says. How? The federal filing is ready. It has been ready since Tuesday afternoon. I was holding it pending. Dante making a verifiable move on US soil after the wedding. If he shows up at Elian's building tonight, that is the move. That is the thing that converts everything we have into something a prosecutor can stand up in front of a judge with. Marcus pauses. But he needs to actually arrive, and we need to document it. The building cameras, Elian says from the chair. To Marcus, yes. Briggs has people on every entrance, Victor says. Then we wait, Marcus says, and we let him come. The apartment goes quiet again. Waiting is its own particular discipline. Not passive, active, the sustained attention of people who have been working at full capacity for 31 hours and are now required to hold very still while the next thing develops. Elian has always been better at this than people expect. He is an architect by training. Waiting for a structure to reveal its flaws is part of the work. He waits. 3 a.m. Nothing. 4 a.m. Briggs checks in. East entrance clear. West entrance clear. Garage level clear. Roof access clear. 4:47 a.m. Terrell falls asleep again, this time fully, his chin dropping to his chest. Elian watches him breathe. 29 years. The bike. The deli. The waiting room. A $43,000 and a phone call and a confession in a kitchen. Both things. At once. Victor brings Elian a glass of water at 5 a.m. without being asked. He sets it on the side table and goes back to the kitchen, and Elian drinks it in the grey pre-dawn dark and thinks about Thursday. About Boston. About the real appointment, booked under a name only Marcus and Victor and the physician in Boston know, at a clinic whose address has never touched an internal network or a patient portal or a cousin's phone or a monitoring application. The real appointment is clean. Whatever happens tonight, Thursday is clean. At 5:23 a.m., Briggs calls. East entrance, Briggs says. One vehicle, stopped at the curb, engine running. Dante, Victor says. Not confirmed visually. One individual staying in the vehicle. Hold, Victor says. Into Marcus. You seeing this? Building cameras show the vehicle, Marcus says. I'm running the plate. 30 seconds. It's registered to a shell company, Marcus says. Delaware Incorporation, 3 months old. Consistent with Dante's operational pattern. Elian stands up from the chair. He goes to the kitchen. He stands next to Victor and they look at the phone together. Marcus's voice, the plate number, the camera feed Marcus has pulled up on his end that shows a dark vehicle idling at the east curb of the building. He's waiting, Elian says. For what? Victor says. Elian thinks. He thinks about the monitoring application, the keyword flags. Medical, appointment, clinic, location, Elian. He thinks about 10 a.m. Thursday. He thinks about a man who has been planning for 9 weeks, who has a 29-year insider, who built financial leverage and a monitoring application and a second source and showed up at a wedding and now sits in a car outside this building at 5:23 in the morning. What does a man like that wait for? Not confrontation. Dante has already demonstrated he will walk into a room of 500 people and make his statement. He does not need darkness or early morning for confrontation. He waits for movement. He is waiting for Elian to leave for the appointment. He thinks it's today, Elian says. The Philadelphia appointment, he thinks it's this morning. Not Thursday. He booked it as today. Victor looks at him. The portal booking, Elian says. Marcus created it for Thursday. But when you send a booking confirmation through internal comms and Dante's application flags it, did the confirmation specify the date clearly? Or did it just say appointment confirmed? Silence on Marcus's end. A long, specific silence. It said appointment confirmed, Marcus says. The date was in the attachment. The attachment would not have been captured by the keyword flag. He only has the confirmation notification. He thinks it's this morning, Victor says. He is sitting outside this building, Elian says, waiting for me to walk out at 6 a.m. to catch a train to Philadelphia. The three of them sit with this for 1 second. Then Elian says, "Call the federal agents, right now. Tell them he's here. Tell them to move." Victor is already dialing. Briggs's voice. He's getting out of the vehicle. And the morning breaks open. The federal agents arrive in 4 minutes. That is faster than anyone in the apartment expected. Which means they were closer than anyone in the apartment knew. Which means Marcus has been running a thread with the U.S. Attorney's office that is several layers deeper than the summary version he shared with Victor, which Victor will have a detailed opinion about later. Right now, none of that matters. Elian stands at the kitchen window, off to the side, not directly in frame, the way Briggs instructed, and watches the east entrance of his building from above. The dark vehicle is visible at the curb, one figure standing beside it, facing the entrance. Even from this angle, even in the grey 5 a.m. light, the posture is unmistakable. Dante Vasiliev stands on the sidewalk with his hands in his pockets and his chin up and his face pointed at the building with the patient, settled look of a man who has decided this is the end of something. And he is not moving toward the entrance, not yet. He is doing what Elian correctly identified, waiting for the door to open. Waiting for the Omega he has spent 9 weeks tracking to walk out into the morning and make himself available. Elian does not walk out. 4 black vehicles arrive from 2 directions simultaneously. The choreography of it is precise, 2 from the west, 2 from the east, converging on the block with the quiet, deliberate movement of something that has been planned and rehearsed and does not require noise to communicate its intent. Dante hears them before he sees them. He turns, he sees the vehicles, he sees the individuals stepping out. Plain clothes, but the particular unmistakable plain clothes of federal agents, the cut and bearing that announces itself regardless of the jacket. And he sees Briggs emerging from the building entrance with 2 of his own people. He does not run. This is the thing that strikes Elian most, watching from the window. Dante Vasiliev does not run. He stands on the sidewalk in the 5 a.m. grey with 4 federal vehicles on the block and Briggs coming out of the entrance and whatever internal calculation is running in him at maximum speed. And he stands still. The way powerful men stand still when the game has reached its terminal move and running is beneath the dignity of how they've played. He is cuffed on the sidewalk at 5:31 a.m. The arrest is quiet. No resistance, no statement. Dante looks up at the building one time, one single upward look at the floors above the entrance, and his face in that look is stripped of everything. Not the controlling smile, not the warm, dangerous charm. Not the ballroom composure, just a man who aimed everything he had at one target for 14 months and arrived at a sidewalk in handcuffs at dawn. His eyes do not find the window where Elian stands, but Elian finds his eyes, and he watches them. Terrell is awake behind him. He came to the kitchen when the vehicles pulled up, and he is standing back from the window with his arms crossed and his jaw tight, watching a man he trusted for 14 months be put into a federal vehicle. He does not look relieved. He looks like a man taking inventory of the distance between who he thought he was and what the last 14 months actually made him, and finding that distance larger than he expected. Victor is on the phone with the U.S. Attorney. He is saying words like voluntary disclosure and cooperation, and the monitoring application documentation will be filed by 9 a.m. in the even surgical tone of a man who has been building toward this exact conversation for 6 months and is not going to waste a syllable of it. The federal vehicle pulls away. The street below is empty. The photographer from the press van is on the sidewalk, photographing the space where the vehicle was. New York media response time, under 3 minutes from federal action to camera presence. Elian almost respects it. He steps back from the window. He sits down at the kitchen table. He is exhausted with a totality that reorganizes the word. Not the 31 hours awake exhausted, though that is present. Something deeper. And the exhausted of a person who has been running at crisis capacity for 9 weeks and has just watched the specific source of that crisis be placed into a car and removed from the board. The board is not clear. Dante's arrest does not erase 14 months of damage. It does not unexpose the pregnancy or unannounce it to 500 wedding guests, or refund the 6 weeks when Elian sat in this apartment believing the worst version of every available truth. It does not resolve the Terrell accounting or the Dio conversation that still needs to happen, or the many evenings conversation with Victor about managed information and secondary phones. But it stops the bleeding. That is what Elian focuses on, sitting at the kitchen table at 5:35 a.m. on a Wednesday in February. The bleeding stops here. Victor ends his call. He comes to the table. Or he sits across from Elian. He does not say anything immediately because Zaire Reyes has learned, slowly, with effort, with the specific discipline of a man who communicates naturally in strategy and is teaching himself to communicate in something human, that Elian sometimes needs a moment before words. The moment passes. It's done, Elian says. The federal hold is in place, Victor says. The Monaco filing sealed this morning. The French authority confirmed at 4 a.m. The Meridian leverage is gone. Everything Dante built is under federal examination. And the inside source, the monitoring application. Marcus is documenting it. It goes to the attorney's office with everything else. Elian nods. The appointment, he says. Thursday, Boston. Still clean, Victor says. Same physician, same name. Nothing touched it. Good. He looks at his hands on the table. I want to call Cassius, he says. Of course. And I want to talk to Dio. Victor does not flinch. I'll set it up today. Three-way call, you on, whatever he says you hear it. Elian looks up. You understand why I need that? Yes. Victor meets his eyes. I understand exactly why you need that, and I should have understood it 6 months ago, and I didn't, and I am going to spend however long it takes making sure you understand that I know the difference between protecting someone and deciding for them. The morning light is coming through the kitchen window now. Real light, the pale gold of a February sunrise that has decided against seasonal expectation to show up. It lands on the table between them, on their hands, or on the space that has held so many hard conversations in the last 16 hours. Terrell is standing in the doorway. Both of them look at him. He looks like a man who has something to say and is weighing it against whether he has earned the right to say it yet. He squares his jaw. He says it anyway. I'm going to pay it back, he says. The money, all of it. It's going to take time, but I'm going to pay it back, and I'm going to do whatever you need me to do legally, and I'm going to... I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't fix it. But I need you to know that it's what I'm going to do. The kitchen is quiet. Elian looks at his cousin for a long moment. You can start, Elian says, by being in Boston on Thursday. Terrell's throat moves. You want me there? I want my family there, Elian says. The family that shows up and stays. And that's the version I want. Terrell nods. The nod of a man receiving something he does not feel he deserves and has the honesty to know it. Okay, he says. Okay. Victor's phone buzzes. He glances at it. Looks up. Something in his face shifts. Not the boardroom face, not the crisis face. The other face. The roof terrace face. Cassius lands at JFK in 3 hours, he says. Elian goes still. Cassius is... He's been on a flight since last night, Victor says. He called Marcus at 11 p.m. He said... Victor looks at the phone, then at Elian. He said he was done waiting in Chicago to hear whether his brother was okay. The kitchen does something to Elian's face that the whole of the previous 24 hours could not do. It breaks it. Not in the bad way. In the way of a wall that has been holding so long it has forgotten it was built to come down eventually. In the way of a structure that has done its job and can now finally rest. He presses both hands over his face. He does not make a sound. Victor does not cross to him. He does the right thing. He stays where he is, across the table, present and close, while Elian takes 30 seconds behind his hands to be undone by the simple, radical fact of a brother who got on a plane. 30 seconds. Then the hands come down, the eyes are wet. He does not hide it. Thursday is going to be fine, Victor says. Quiet, direct. The voice of a man making a statement he intends to hold as true by whatever means available to him. The appointment is going to be fine. The child is going to be fine. You don't know that, Elian says. No, Victor says. I don't, but I will be there, and Cassius will be there, and Terrell will be there, and if that physician in Boston tells us something we have to navigate, we navigate it. Together, with every fact available to both of us at the same time. Elian looks at him. No more secondary phones, Elian says. No more secondary phones. No more managed information. No more managed information. And you are going to have a very long conversation with me about 2019. Victor exhales. I know. The shooting. I know. Both of them. Elian, I know. The ghost of something moves across Elian's face, not quite a smile, not quite yet, but the architecture of one, the load-bearing structure of it, present beneath the surface, waiting for the moment to complete itself. He picks up his phone. He calls Cassius. Cassius answers on the first ring, at 35,000 feet above the eastern seaboard, with the sound of a plane and a voice that says only, I'm almost there. I know, Elian says. Is it over? Elian looks at Victor across the kitchen table, at Terrell in the doorway, at the gold morning coming through the window and the city below beginning its next day, completely unaware of what was dismantled in this kitchen while it slept. This part, Elian says. Good, Cassius says. That's enough for now. It is. The Boston clinic smells like clean paper and something faintly floral, and the waiting room chairs are the specific blue of a calm thing. Elian notices this when he sits down, the blue of the chairs, which someone chose deliberately, and which means someone who designed this waiting room understood that the people who sit in it are already carrying enough, and the room itself should not add to the weight. He appreciates that. Cassius is on his left. He arrived at JFK at 9:17 a.m. Thursday and went directly to a shower at Victor's penthouse and ate half a sandwich standing over the kitchen sink and refused to sleep because, as he explained to no one in particular, he would sleep after. He is 34 years old and has the same long hands as Elian and the same specific stillness that both of them inherited from a father who believed that being quiet in a room was a form of respect for it. He sits in the blue chair with his knee touching Elian's and his phone in his pocket and his eyes on the hallway door. Terrell is on Elian's right. He drove from New York at 5 a.m. And he brought coffee that was hot when he bought it and is now merely warm. And he brought the turkey avocado again because it is the thing he knows to bring, and he is trying very hard to do the things he knows. He handed it to Elian when he arrived at the clinic entrance and did not say anything, and Elian took it and also did not say anything, and that was its own kind of conversation. Victor is at the reception desk. He has been at the reception desk for 4 minutes. This is because the physician, Dr. Yolanda Ferris, recommended by the Boston contact and described as brilliant and quietly exceptional, has a scheduling system that requires a form completion that Victor has apparently decided requires his personal supervision. Elian can see him from the blue chair. He is standing at the desk with his reading glasses on. Reading glasses that Elian has seen exactly twice before, both times in the penthouse, both times over contracts, and which have never once appeared in a public setting, filling out a form with the focused, complete attention he brings to everything. The reading glasses. That is the thing that does it. Not the crossing of the aisle at the wedding, not the kitchen floor. Not I named it after you, or I was already in the car. The reading glasses at a Boston clinic reception desk on a Thursday morning, filling out a form for someone else's prenatal appointment, is the thing that completes the structure Elian has been looking at from various angles for 18 months and finally seeing whole. He looks away before Victor can catch him looking. You okay? Cassius says. Yes, Elian says. That was fast. I know what I'm looking at, Elian says. Cassius follows his line of sight to the reception desk, to Victor and the reading glasses and the form. He is quiet for a moment. He called me, Cassius says, in October, 2 months before I came to him. Elian looks at him. He called me and said he needed someone who knew you, really knew you, to help him understand whether he was doing the right thing by the engagement, whether staying quiet was protecting you or damaging you. Cassius keeps his voice low. I told him it was damaging you. I told him he needed to find a way out that didn't cost you your dignity. And he said, Cassius stops, studies the middle distance for a moment. He said he knew. He said he had known for 2 months, and that was why he was calling. Elian processes this. He reached out to you, Elian says. And then I reached out to him with the intelligence, Cassius says. It was a two-way street. I want you to know that. He didn't recruit me. I recruited myself because I love you and I am also apparently incapable of staying out of complicated situations. which is a character trait we share and should probably discuss with someone professional. Elian makes the sound again, the almost laugh. Cassius, he says. Yeah, I love you. I know, Cassius says. You have terrible timing when you say it, though, every single time. Victor returns from the desk with a clipboard and sits on Elian's other side, which means Elian is between the two of them, which was not arranged and is therefore the most natural possible arrangement. Dr. Ferris is ready in 10 minutes, Victor says. She wants to do the ultrasound first and review the imaging before she talks, which she says is her preference for clarity. That's good, Elian says. The form asks for emergency contact, Victor says. He holds out the clipboard. There is a blank line. Elian takes the clipboard. He fills in the line. He hands it back. Victor reads it. He does not say anything, but something in his face does what it does when it is doing what it is not supposed to do in public. It opens. Just slightly. Just enough. The line says, Victor Zaire Reyes. 10 minutes later, Dr. Yolanda Ferris brings Elian into the examination room. The room is also blue. Victor comes. Cassius stays in the waiting room with Terrell, who is on his second cup of coffee and has been quiet in the particular, a useful way of a person working very hard at the only thing currently available to him. Dr. Ferris is in her early 50s, unhurried, with the specific economy of movement that belongs to people who have been excellent at their work for long enough that excellence has become quiet. She does not perform reassurance. She asks questions, listens to the answers, and then does the ultrasound with the focused, careful attention of someone who takes the looking seriously. Elian lies on the table. Victor stands at the edge of it. He does not take Elian's hand. He stands close, and his presence is the same as his hand on the back of Elian's neck in the dark, warm and steady and entirely certain of where it wants to be. The screen lights up. Dr. Ferris moves the transducer. She looks at the image with that economy of focus, reading it the way Elian reads blueprints for what the structure says about the intent. She is quiet for 90 seconds. Elian counts them. All right, Dr. Ferris says. She turns the screen slightly so both of them can see it. The positioning concern from the previous imaging. What I was seeing was an edge presentation of the placenta that looked like it was encroaching on the cervical opening. That was the flag. She points at the screen. At 13 weeks, which you are as of today, the uterus has expanded enough to show me clearly that it has moved. The placenta is positioned normally. There is no encroachment. The room holds still. Nothing to monitor, Victor says. Standard prenatal monitoring from here, Dr. Ferris says. What I saw at the previous visit resolved on its own, which is the most common outcome of this type of presentation. It looked concerning at 10 weeks. At 13 weeks, it is not. She looks at Elian. Your son is measuring precisely where he should be. His positioning is textbook. His heartbeat is 153 beats per minute, which is where we want it. 153. Elian hears it. Through the speaker on the ultrasound machine, a rapid, steady, small percussion, the sound of a heart that has been beating for 13 weeks in the quiet dark, entirely unconcerned with what was happening outside it. Federal filings and wedding traps and monitoring applications and cousins with spare keys and fake appointments and real ones. Just beating, 153 times per minute. Elian closes his eyes. He hears Victor exhale. It is the most unguarded sound Victor Reyes has made in 18 months of Elian knowing him. The complete involuntary exhale of a body releasing something it has been holding for a very long time. The exhale of a man who has been running calculations on a worst-case scenario for 9 weeks and has just been told the calculation was wrong. Dr. Ferris gives them a moment. She is a good doctor. When Elian opens his eyes, Victor is looking at the screen, at the small, precise form on it. His jaw is set, but his eyes are full, not crying. Victor Reyes does not cry in examination rooms, but the eyes are full the way a container is full when it has reached the exact point of capacity and is holding by the surface tension of everything it has learned about restraint. He's okay, Elian says. He's okay, Victor says, and they look at the screen together for a moment that belongs to no one else. Then Elian says, 13 weeks. Yes, Dr. Ferris says, which means we passed the first trimester. As of today, yes. Elian looks at Victor. The conversation we need to have, he says. The many evenings conversation about 2019 and the secondary phone and Dio and Cassius and all of it. He pauses. It starts tonight. Tonight, Victor says. All of it. No managed versions. All of it, Victor says. No managed versions. And you are going to listen as much as you talk. That, Victor says, with the fractional private version of a smile, may take longer to learn. I have time, Elian says. The heartbeat continues through the speaker. 153, 153, 153. They leave the examination room at 11:07 a.m. Cassius stands up the moment the door opens. He reads the answer in Elian's face before anyone speaks. Reads it the way he has always read Elian. The way that only someone who has known you for your entire life can read you, from the specific angle of your jaw and the way your shoulders sit. He exhales. Then he pulls Elian in by the back of the neck, the exact gesture, the family version, and holds on for a full 5 seconds. Terrell stands up slower. He hangs back, reading the room, giving the two brothers the front of it. When Cassius lets go, Elian looks at Terrell. He crosses to him. He puts one hand on his cousin's shoulder. He does not hug him yet. That is a distance that will close. He knows it will close, and not because the accounting has been completed, but because this is family, and family has a specific, unkillable gravity. But it will close slowly. It will close in the space of real time, real work, real choices made correctly. He's fine, Elian says. We're both fine. Terrell nods. His throat moves. Okay, he manages. Okay, Elian says. Victor holds the door. All four of them walk out of the Boston clinic into a Thursday that has decided to be luminous. Clean blue sky, cold air with an edge of the earliest possible suggestion of spring. The kind of day that arrives in February without permission and stays just long enough to remind the city that winter is not permanent. The street is quiet, no press, no vehicles with running engines at the curb, no monitoring applications or manila envelopes or secondary phones. Just a sidewalk. 4 people, morning light. Elian tips his face up toward the sky. He stands there for a moment in the cold, clean air with his hand pressed lightly against his abdomen. Not hiding, not bracing. Just the weight of his own hand on the place where his son is, at 13 weeks, growing in the quiet dark, entirely unbothered, entirely fine. Victor stands beside him, not in front of him, not between him and the street. Beside, the geometry of a man who has spent 18 months learning the difference between protection and partnership and has arrived slowly and with considerable stumbling at the right configuration. What do you want to do today? Victor says. Elian considers this. I want lunch, he says. Real lunch, somewhere nobody knows us. I want to sit at a table and order food and hear about whatever Cassius is designing right now, because he always has something interesting in progress, and I haven't asked in 3 months. He looks at Victor. And then I want to drive back to New York and start the many evenings conversation. We can do that, Victor says. And I want the turkey avocado, Elian adds, even though Terrell already brought one this morning. I want another one. I will personally acquire a second turkey avocado, Victor says. Cassius, who has been listening to this exchange with the expression of a man filing it carefully for future reference, says, You two are the strangest people I have ever met. We're aware, Elian says. They walk down the Boston sidewalk. 4 of them. The morning holds its warmth. The child at 13 weeks continues, are in the quiet dark, to beat. 153, 153. That number, that small, steady, entirely unbothered number, is the truest thing in the story. Not the wedding that was a trap, or the leverage that was dismantled, or the federal filing, or the fake appointment, or the gym in Hoboken, or the photographs, or the $43,000, or the 4 words on a St. Regis sidewalk. The number is 153, a heart doing its work, and around it 4 people walking in the same direction. And beside them, a man in reading glasses who named a building, crossed an aisle, sat on a kitchen floor, and is learning, slowly, with effort, in with the particular discipline of someone who has decided that the work of love is worth doing at the same standard as everything else. To be in the room he is actually in, not the managed room, the real one. Most people who watched the news coverage of the St. Regis wedding will remember the photographs, the confrontation, the arrest footage from the building camera that leaked before the U.S. Attorney's Office could request a suppression, which they did not get. They will remember the headline, "Billionaire CEO dismantles rival's federal setup at own wedding." They will not remember, because it was not photographed or published or filed in any document, a Thursday clinic in Boston, a heartbeat at 153, a man tipping his face toward February light on a sidewalk. They will not know about the reading glasses. And that is exactly right. The things that last are almost never the ones that get photographed. They are the ones that happen in the space between the photographs, in the kitchens and the utility rooms and the waiting rooms painted blue and the sidewalks in the cold morning, where nobody is performing and everything is exactly what it is. That is where the real story lived. And it is still going. If this story moved you, if it kept you on the edge of your seat, if you found yourself holding your breath in a utility room at the St. Regis or counting seconds in a blue waiting room in Boston, then you already know what kind of storytelling this channel is built for. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications so you do not miss a single story that is coming. Every story on this channel is built to move you, challenge you, and remind you that the most extraordinary human experiences are hiding in the spaces between what people choose to show the world. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What moment hit you the hardest? Was it the kitchen floor, the reading glasses, the heartbeat at 153? Tell us where you are watching from and share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Your comment might be exactly the thing that inspires someone else to keep going. This channel exists because of you, and every story here is